Although the new propulsion system only has a small portion of the thrust needed to get anything going, NASA hopes it will provide enough motivation to work on future tasks like reaching Mars on current missions or creating more sophisticated, human-rated hyperdrive engines with higher speeds. NASA has unveiled a new light-speed engine that might one day land humans on Mars. The engine is a theoretical device that can create thrusts in the range of 10% of the speed of light, but theoretical does not mean impossible. NASA sees this as a trial run for an eventual Mars mission. Please enjoy this film on NASA's creation of a near-light speed engine that defies physics. If you want to learn more about this incredible invention and what it might mean for future space exploration, please subscribe to our channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts on the implications of this new technology. Thank you very much. Meet the EM drive. The idea behind the EM drive is that microwaves can accelerate propellant and push a craft towards its destination. The only catch is that the RF power that makes this possible cannot be obtained without creating enormous amounts of heat inside the device, which means the propellant is accelerated and decelerated by microwaves. The EM drive is a cyclic version of the rocket that uses the force of magnets to push itself forward. This device has no fuel because it lacks a combustion chamber, which is normally required for a rocket engine. Wouldn't remain heated long enough to power an engine, but no one has been able to conduct a laboratory test on this device to demonstrate its functionality, preventing a patent and a public test. Skeptics are often attacking this contentious EM drive that defies physics principles, but NASA has recently stepped up to provide its backing. Unlike current engines, scientists are intrigued by their possibilities because it doesn't require any external materials to function. However, there are a few things that scientists have said that are more difficult to explain. First, the acceleration rate of this device could surpass 4Gs. NASA will continue to look for evidence that EM drives work as a result of this grant, because they hope to launch this groundbreaking engine into space within the next 10 years. Since the device doesn't produce a lot of heat, it would be difficult to detect whether it functions, so it will be very easy for skeptics to ignore what NASA is trying to prove. This implies that a person within the craft would accelerate 4 times their own weight. This is difficult for an EM drive to accomplish in any situation, mostly because it is difficult to accelerate mass at such a high rate. There are 2 additional factors to take into account regarding this device as well. The first is that the thrust produced by the engine is significantly greater than what can be explained by radiation pressure. It is even more potent than Newton's third law, which states that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The second is that the device can produce extreme thrust when the parts are moving at very high speeds, indicating that NASA must have some technology behind this cipher. Propulsion. Skeptics have quickly dismissed this grant and its news as a joke, but we should all keep an open mind about this and find out if this propulsion system can work, as NASA claims a road to break through the EM drive is not just a means of transportation. It's a stepping stone towards something greater and bolder. This engine represents a new way of approaching the future, both on Earth and in space, in the same way that life-changing discoveries are constantly being made to help improve our lives. Right now, we have no way to travel faster than the speed of light, but by looking at how this engine works and what it can do, we could develop technology that allows us to cross huge distances. In very little time, we already have rockets that can transport us into space and even take us onto Mars within months. However, it still takes years to prepare for the journey and discoveries being made along the way. This is a very slow process that could be drastically improved through this new form of propulsion. It will speed up travel procedurally and technologically and make it easier for us to approach our intergalactic neighbors. It would be like sending a text message when we need something. Rather than leaving messages on an answering machine performance, the EM drive will be a disruptive force on the spacecraft market, and NASA intends to make this engine as efficient as possible if it can function. Reliably, we'll be able to explore the universe without being limited by our fuel supply. However, we still need to look into many things regarding this new form of propulsion. For example, we must understand how it produces so much power with very little mass in the chamber. It's true that the thrust produced by this engine is small right now, but more testing could reveal a solution to this problem that would benefit future spacecraft, even though almost everybody has written off this engine as a hoax and a non-starter. The team developing it looks like they will keep going. NASA is working hard to prove that the engine can work, and with their support, the future looks very bright for EM drives. It's not just good for space travel, but also getting around on Earth. Think about how efficient it could be for mass transit in big cities. It's time to look forward to what the future may hold for this engine and for NASA, which has been supporting this new propulsion system. Even though most people have already written this device off as a hoax, something is happening behind the scenes here. If people could use an EM-powered craft to get from point A to point B instead of taking public transit or riding in taxis, the possibilities are endless, and it's all thanks to a device that doesn't break any of the laws of physics. NASA has a lot riding on this project if it does manage to pull through with its objectives, which means there will be a lot more competition in space travel from here on out. Benefits of near-light-speed travel. There are some great benefits to traveling at near-light speed. For one thing, you could easily reach anywhere in the solar system. Within a few hours, you wouldn't have to worry about diseases or being exposed to radiation, as it's always possible to travel out of the way of things, like asteroids and comets, simply by turning around. If they get too close, space travel would become very easy. If we had the right technology, it would also become a lot safer since there would be no chance of us getting stuck in space or burning up upon re-entry into different atmosphere. This means that there would be no need to worry about what happens after we die. While in space, you could use this engine to brake your craft. This means that you would have the ability to land safely, without having to spend weeks or even months trying to figure out how to stop your spacecraft from crashing into a planet or another solar system. Unlike other space travel systems, it will be quite simple for us to enter any place on Earth and investigate it without needing to make any arrangements for a long period beforehand. Concerns about security and safety. There are serious ideas about this new engine and how it could help us. To begin, we must be aware of the risks involved because if it can travel close to the speed of light, it could cause significant harm if there were ever an engine issue or any other issue while using it. It's also possible that anything that occurs on Earth while you're in space will have an impact on how you return to Earth. I don't know how this would happen, but we must be ready for anything that may occur during the journey or after returning home from space. There may be some potential for this engine to be used for military purposes, for example, building a craft. With one of these engines and launching it into space would be very easy. It could act as a spy ship that no one could see coming or going, which would make it almost impossible for enemies to know where the ship is. At all times, this means it would be very easy for someone to do something like shut down our nuclear arsenal by flying into a missile base, taking control of all of our weapons, and then sending it back to Earth where they'll explode before landing. This doesn't even begin to count the other types of dangers that are associated with intergalactic travel. After all, this kind of engine could create serious problems if it were in the hands of other countries that we didn't get along with. We may have to defend ourselves from an attack from space if one of these engines falls into the wrong hands, so we need to be ready for any potential problems associated with this new form of propulsion, NASA's implementation and testing plans. Even though NASA has been concentrating on testing this engine, they have also been planning for the future. While they have already made some plans to implement this engine into spacecraft once it has been proven to work, there are still a few things we need to be aware of in order to get this new form of propulsion system installed in our future spacecraft. For starters, NASA has already started designing spacecraft that will use EM drives and is working to ensure that it is as dependable and efficient as possible. They are also hoping to determine how long it would take us to reach the speed of light if we were to use this engine. Once that is fully figured out, they intend to determine what would happen if we could go even faster. They want to build a spacecraft that can travel 10 times the speed of light before continuing. It's certainly an ambitious goal, but it is something that we may achieve in the future if EM drives do end up working as well as NASA's hopes. If they will, they also plan to create a spacecraft that would allow us to travel to Mars in just a few days. It could take less than an hour for us to get there if we had the right trajectory and stall. This means that launch windows would have to be very precise and that we need to get our act together. If we ever want a chance at intergalactic travel, we need this new form of propulsion, and we need it as soon as possible. Once these spacecraft are equipped with these engines and successful test flights are completed, NASA should consider building something bigger. Potential applications of the engine. There are a lot of great potential applications for this engine. While it's still very early days for it, we must stay vigilant and continue exploring its potential in the future. NASA is working hard to develop this new engine that could propel spacecraft at near light speed, and there are endless possibilities for what can be accomplished with this propulsion system. However, we must know what could happen if something goes wrong. We need to be ready for any emergency that can occur during this testing phase, and at some time we must continue working hard to keep this engine from falling into the wrong hands. It's a delicate balance, but we must ensure that we can prepare for potential dangers while also paying attention to our goals and improving space travel. NASA has only lately demonstrated that the EM drive, a long-standing propulsion system, is feasible. The idea is to change how atoms move. Most of us already understood that electrical and magnetic forces could move particles around, but this most recent discovery entails something very different. The EM drive generates thrust utilizing the same principle as light without the need for an energy source, since it functions similarly to how deflected light waves move through space. Space travel's future NASA is currently focused on being able to prove that it works so they can start working towards mass production and implementing these engines in our spacecraft. However, the first step is a big one, and that is proving that this new form of propulsion is actually possible. This future form of propulsion has the potential to completely change the way we think about space travel. Sending humans into space is already possible, but it is not easy or practical. We have spent a lot of money on our previous space programs and have lost a lot of people in the process. If we can successfully find a way to use an engine like the EM drive, we can send spacecraft into space without dealing with all the risks that come with it. This is a significant advancement in space exploration that might revolutionize everything, but like all advancements, its viability will depend on how dependable the technology is. If this new engine performs as promised, one of the main issues with intergalactic travel might finally be resolved. We still live in a world where poverty, hunger, and pollution are commonplace, and this new development in space travel technology could definitively address all of these issues. It will also save us a significant amount of money by enabling us to send multiple people into space simultaneously without worrying about a single ship colliding with another. What do you think of this new kind of propulsion for spacecraft? Please share your ideas by leaving a comment below.